Hello, and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we have another amazing guest to introduce you now. Amy Eiges is a certified health coach and reformed chronic dieter who is passionate about helping others recover from the diet binge gain shame cycle that she struggled with for years. Since discovering a ketogenic and low carbohydrate lifestyle, she has lost and maintained a weight loss of over 200 pounds and has both reversed prediabetes and resolved lifelong depression. She is now part of the care team at Dr. Tro's Medical Weight Loss, led by former podcast guest Dr. Tro Kalayjian, who we hosted on episode 332 of Boundless Body Radio. Their platform provides nationwide medical weight loss and offers primary and metabolic care through an individual approach that reverses and prevents disease. They provide a community that's ready to stand in your corner and cheer you on every step of the way. In Amy's own words, when I was just starting out, facing 200 pounds to lose seemed insurmountable, and the idea that I would ever be where I am was unfathomable. Know this, I am not extraordinary. I finally just got the right advice, put one foot in front of the other, and didn't look back. I know now that it can be done, but after battling this war for 40 years, I had lost hope that it was really, truly possible. I am living proof that it is. Amy, I guess what an absolute honor it is to welcome you to Boundless Body Radio.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
It's so great to host you. We have a really time-sensitive reason for hosting you today, but I've been wanting to get you on the show for quite a long time. And my first question to you is, what if I traveled back in time, maybe 10 years, and told you, Amy, that you were going to be a health coach and a program director with Dr. Tro? What would you say?
I would say, who is Dr. Tro and what you're an alien? Yeah, it's 10 years ago that I would be talking about the one topic that I found so incredibly painful to talk about for almost 50 years before that. I would have been, it just would have been a foreign thought. I just could not imagine that this is the life that I'd be living, that my career would change, my body would change, my health would be completely reversed. It just wouldn't even have been comprehensible.
10 years ago that somebody would ask you about health advice and how to eat healthily, like completely
It
unfathomable
would
at
be
that point.
ridiculous. It would be the most ridiculous, laughable thought 10 years
Oh
ago.
my
Yeah.
goodness.
I mean, 10
Wow.
years ago, I was over 400 pounds. And I had been up and down in that range for decades, probably. And I was like hitting my head against a wall, trying to figure out why I could not figure it out. But I
Oh my
literally
goodness.
woke up every day, trying to think, what am I going to do today to lose weight? Which is the irony of all ironies, right? That I
Yeah,
dieted my way to over 400 pounds. So,
that's crazy. Yeah. It's I try to explain this to people all the time. Like sometimes the biggest people that you see are the ones that are trying the hardest. They're just getting the worst advice that's putting them in that terrible metabolic spot where the weight gain was caused by the repeated weight loss. And we look at them, we judge them, and we say, oh, they're lazy, they're slobs, whatever. No, those are the ones who are trying the hardest, often cases, especially with you. I mean, we have a lot of people who come on the show and they tell us their stories, and it starts at a very young age. I don't recall anybody where this story started as early as yours did. Like
yeah.
not like exactly going to Weight Watchers, but going to Weight Watchers with your mom and learning about diets and all this stuff at such a young age. You have such an incredible story. If we could kind of deep dive into that and hear how you got to
Sure.
where you are being an amazing certified health coach today.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so my histories with weight and diet started as you said, really when I think back about it on it now, like incredibly young. I mean, weight was definitely a theme in my family, and I was definitely born with propensity for being a little bit overweight. Almost everybody in my family is or was overweight, and so I tagged along with my mother at my first Weight Watchers meeting. I must have been 3, 4, 5 years old, somewhere around there. I have told this story before, which is you probably read it on one of my blog posts, but yeah, I was so young that I could not spell, but I remember the woman that weighed my mother in at Weight Watchers looked me up and down and spelled something to my mother that started with an O. And I knew even at that young age that she was calling me fat, right? Because I remember asking my mother on the drive home, what's a word that starts with an O that, means fat, And, so I was very young. And then I went to, Weight Watchers camps. My parents, grew up in the New York tri-state area. So we had access to, Manhattan doctors, the best and the brightest, the smartest doctors. They took me to every program, every doctor, every book that came out. We tried everything for me to lose weight, and I could never do it. I could never do it. And then, you fast forward through decades of like dieting and failing and getting terrible advice. And, that sort of learned helplessness took root. And I just really didn't believe that there was any option for me other than maybe bariatric surgery. And so about 8 years ago, about 8 years ago, I was actually going to have bariatric surgery. And I knew that it was going to be a terrible choice for me. I just knew somehow intrinsically it wasn't going to be right for me. But I was so desperate and I just didn't have any reason to believe that anything else would work. So maybe it was the fear of the surgery, or maybe it was knowing that it was going to be such a drastic step, but not the right one for me. I did a last minute Google search 2 weeks before I was supposed to be with the surgeon, and I came across low carb. It was the one diet I had never tried because I grew up in the time where it still is very much where fat's going to kill you and steak and butter is going to kill you. And so I never tried low carb because I thought it's like a heart attack waiting to happen. But I thought, let me give it a try. Let me try it for 2 weeks. Let me see. This is the one thing I haven't tried. Um, Lo and behold, over almost 8 years later, as you said, I'm down over 200 pounds, keeping it off. And when I first really started on this journey, my goal for myself was really just to be a smaller fat person. And I don't say fat as a bad thing. I mean, it wasn't, I was over 400 pounds. I just wanted to fit into the real regular world a little more comfortably. I had no idea that I was going to lose over 200 pounds, change my career, change my life, be working out every day, like being so as comfortable in my skin as I am now. This
Wow.
was not even a thought that I could get here. It was just, let me just be smaller so that I would fit more comfortably in the world.
Wow, that's crazy. When you look back on the journey before you found low carbohydrate, in hindsight, what was like the wildest diet you ever went on?
Oh my God. Well, I joined Weight Watchers over 35 times.
That's amazing.
Right? Like,
Frequent
what's the
weight
definition of
loss.
insanity, right? Like
Oh
doing
my
something over and
goodness.
over. But the craziest diet, I mean, I guess, like Oprah, or, when she wheeled that barrel of fat on the stage, I did OptiFast a couple times. Both times I lost maybe 60, 70 pounds, and the weight came back on. So it was like whoosh, I just breathed and the weight came back on after that. That was probably the most extreme. I mean, there were millions of diets along the way. The Scarsdale diet, the grapefruit diet. I don't think I ever did the cabbage soup diet, but I thought about it. But
That's my
there was
favorite.
just, yeah, just millions. Just you name it, I tried it.
Wow, that's crazy. So my career before we opened our own business was using metabolic carts to measure people's metabolism, how many calories they were burning. And it was so tragic to see some of these people that were bigger, they wanted to lose weight, and they had done so many diets and combined that with overexercise. Their metabolic rates were so low. It was
Yeah,
like they were not going to be able to lose any weight. They were going to gain so much weight just to try to recover that metabolism back to where it was. And even then, you might not be able to. We know that study with the biggest losers who, did
yeah,
the contest, and years later added all the weight, and their metabolic rates were still really, really low because of the damage they had done. So again,
yeah.
it's such a tragic story. And I think a lot of people can relate to, like, yeah, I just was breathing in and all the weight came back like that quick. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Interesting.
and that's partially why I think it's so important that, when you embark on a weight loss journey, if you have been overweight for a long time, if you've been a chronic dieter, that you really need to see this as a process, because you may need to heal yourself first. You may need to sort of heal your metabolism, heal your metabolic health before the weight loss will actually happen, but it will happen.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, you said you found some resources on low carbohydrate. I'm guessing you probably found those resources at my former favorite site that was awesome and amazing and was used for so many years for so many great things that now no longer is my favorite. Is that safe to say?
That is safe to say. It's why I don't feel comfortable actually saying the name of it anymore, because if I came across that site now, I would never have embarked and been as successful as I have been. And
Agreed.
it breaks my heart.
Yeah,
It
me
breaks my
too.
heart because it's an amazing resource. It was an amazing resource, and it is no longer.
Yeah, I agree. I paid every single month. I used their meal plans. I gave them to people. We had tremendous results with these very simple meal planning tools. And it's unfortunate they went the way they did. But they do have lots of, they featured lots of people who are in the low carbohydrate space. Do you remember who you maybe like connected with their message like really early on that like really gave you hope that yes, this is possible?
Yeah, so I started, I think, well, Nina Teicholz, who I used to work with and I have become friends with. Her videos were
What?
really instrumental. Dr. Sarah Hallberg's diabetes TED Talk, I remember watching that. Um, who else? Brett Scher. I mean, there were so many people, early on who on that site who I remember. Gary Taubes. I remember, you know, Gary and Nina. I think they really break the science down for people. I always say like I don't speak science. It's not my first language. So if you could break it down for me, I'm always grateful. And watching their videos, watching Dr. Sarah Hallberg, like I really thought to myself, wow, I think this makes sense. Like I think this might work. And then there was a whole bunch of resources on the food that looked so much more delicious than the Weight Watchers points that I was counting over and over. But yeah, they broke the science down in a way that I could understand.
Now, those are a few pretty good people to follow when it comes to science and breaking it down in a simple way. Meeting Nina Teicholz in person was like one of the highlights of my entire life. She is an absolute angel. She's amazing.
She's awesome, and she's fighting the good fight, and thank goodness for her. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Okay, so what were some of the challenges when you were first going? I mean, obviously, this was a diet you hadn't done before, so a little bit of hope there, and things were making sense scientifically. But again, it's another diet. Like there must have been some trepidation on your part. Like, I don't know. Like, what was it like to try this? How was this going to be any different? Was it the science that made sense, or like what was it about this that you really wanted to like dive in? And what were some of the challenges in
Yeah.
the beginning?
So yeah, I mean the science seemed to make sense, but as I said, like I don't speak science. I it's not my first language. It's not the language that resonates for me, right? Like for me, what happened is that I was doing the diet for the 2 weeks, as I said before I was going to the surgeon, and listen, was facing over 200 pounds to lose. I certainly didn't lose enough weight in those 2 pounds to make any huge dent, but I could feel there was a shift in my attitude, my cravings, my hunger. I mean, it was just 2 weeks, but and now in retrospect, I understand the science for why it was so different. I was no longer like on a blood sugar roller coaster up and down where I was eating food that was making me hungrier and giving me cravings, right? But I didn't understand. I didn't have the language to explain that or understand that at that point. All I knew was like, I'm feeling good. My hunger is down. My cravings are down. I'm eating really delicious food. I'm canceling this surgery. I'm canceling the appointment and I'm gonna just ride this out and see where it takes me. Early on it was a little bit I really went in full force because I was really scared and I really knew that that surgery was not the right call for me. But, it was hard to tell my friends and family it's another diet, here's another thing. Um, and also because everybody was like, you're going to have a heart attack from all that butter and steak, and I was over 400 pounds. They were legitimately concerned about me, but, but I just knew I could just feel a shift and I just kept going with it. And Eve, all the people that have said I could never do that diet, I could never give up my bread, or you're gonna have a heart attack from all that butter and steak. Nearly 100% of them have come to me at some point or another over the last couple of years to ask for advice or to, um, just to find out how do they
Yeah.
do this keto thing.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's really truly the only diet I've ever seen and found to be useful for people who say, like, I came to this for weight loss. I want to lose weight. I want to lose fat. Of course, that's why we go on diets. But it's like you're describing. you didn't say, "Oh, I stayed on this because I was losing fat and that was great." You said, "I stayed on this because I felt great. My brain was different. I had food freedom for the first time in my life. I wasn't starving all the time and having these cravings." It's such a cool diet in that way that like you may start it because of weight loss, and absolutely you're going to lose weight, you're going to lose fat if you stick with it. But there's so many other benefits that it's like really soon, like within like 2 or 3 weeks, it's like, okay, I'm not so stressed out about the weight anymore. I'm just feeling so great, and that's the primary motivator.
Yeah, I mean, like the food chatter, definitely the volume is down on that. But I'm not one of those people that went low carb and I never looked back in terms of my food relationship, right? Like it is low carb and keto gives me a fighting chance, but I had nearly 50 years of diet culture, diet brain, restriction, over restriction or binging, right? Like you don't just get rid of that overnight, even over the last couple of years, right? Like I've had to pretty much use all the skills that I learned over those 50 years of dieting, and all of the new skills and things that I've learned being low carb. And I sort of combine them into what I call sort of intuitive weight loss, which is, um, eating foods that don't make me hungrier, but also being very mindful of that food relationship and the drive to eat. Because I could gain weight doing keto and low carb. I have gained weight eating keto and low carb. And so I think, you know, I'm I'm not one of those people that, I read and I follow on social media. I just eat a steak every 3 days and I'm fine. It's not, that hasn't been my experience. So I feel like that is in some way, maybe it's my superpower, right? That I am not somebody that is very vocal. I mean, this is a really difficult, painful thing to talk about, but no one else really is. And I feel like it's important for people that are low carb, that are still maybe struggling a little bit or a lot. There are others of you out there. I am one of them, and I try to be as vocal as I can with my own vulnerabilities because I do not believe, I know I'm not the only one that struggles. And there's so many disenfranchised people who are already disenfranchised. I was disenfranchised by 50 years of horrible, terrible, no good medical advice. And I know there are more of us out there that are struggling, even though they're staying low carb.
Yeah.
So I really work to speak to and for those people.
Wow. Well, good for you. I could not agree more. This message is so important, and there are more people out there like you. And so, yeah, it might be painful to rehash some of this stuff and not the funnest things to talk about, but it is wonderful to do what you're doing, which I do want to ask you about in a minute here. But I do want to ask you a little bit about intuitive eating. I love the concept, and I kind of think about it in two different ways. Like in the last few years, it seems like more people have kind of been talking about intuitive eating, and your body will let you know, okay, well, if I don't put some type of like boundary around my diet, I know what my intuitive eating would be. And my intuitive eating would be I would intuitively eat pie and ice cream every single day. And I would love it until my anxiety came back and I felt terrible all the time. My
Yeah.
energy sucked. That would be my intuitive eating. Now, when I put restrictions and redefine what I think about food, it's a much narrower subset of foods that I consider to be food. But in that way, I do like to be intuitive and say, okay, like what sounds good to me today? How do I balance like something maybe more fatty with something that's a little bit more protein? How do you think about intuitive eating, and how are you able to apply that not only in your life, but some of the people you work with?
Sure. So, there's some misconceptions about the intuitive eating movement. Intuitive eating is based about a book of the same name. It was written, I think, in the 90s. There's 10 rules for intuitive eating. Only one of them is eat what you want. The other ones are really like eat foods. I don't want to mischaracterize them, but they're basically like eat foods that make you feel good. Exercise for the joy of movement, not for weight loss. Eat when you're hungry. Don't eat when you're not. Eat foods again that make you feel good, right? And so what I tell myself and what I tell people that I work with who are dealing with like that over restriction. And the other thing is that, and I've talked a little bit about this already, is that like when you have become a sort of a victim of the diet culture, of bad advice, of not being believed for years, you get stuck on this diet binge roller coaster. And you're eating because you've been over restricted. You're trying to adhere to diets that are just impossible to do in the real world, and then you're breaking out of it, so you're all or nothing. And so, what I tell people when I'm working with them is that, and what I tell myself is that I can eat whatever I want. I can choose to do that. I'm a grown woman choosing what I put in my grown-up mouth, right? But I have to be willing to deal with the consequences of that, which are, and I tell myself the whole truth about the foods that I might be craving or want to eat, and which is that I don't like how I feel when I eat those foods. My knees hurt, my stomach hurts, my weight will go up, but which is a big deal, but it's also much more immediate than that. Like my depression's going to come back, eczema is going to return, pre-diabetes is going to return. Like it's going to taste good for 4 seconds, but am I willing to live with the consequences of it? And and I tell myself the whole truth about that food. So I choose to eat in a narrower window because I don't want those things to happen, right? So it helps to take some of the stigma away from the food. Like, sometimes people have trouble with low carb and keto because they feel like it is overly restrictive. And I don't think it is, but I can understand. I felt that way early on. There was a little bit of a sort of a mourning process for like, oh my God, I'm never going to have a New York City piece of pizza again or a bagel, and now what I tell myself is you can have that, but you're not going to feel good from it. So what do you want?
Mm.
What are you willing to live with? What are the consequences you're willing to live with?
Yeah, I love that. I love that you mentioned from that book in the 90s, the eat the things that's going to make you feel good. And again, it's like reframing it, thinking about it the way you just mentioned it, is eating the pie and ice cream, is that going to make you feel good? Like, yes, it is for the first 4 seconds.
Right.
Is it going to make you feel good for the next 36 hours when, you're feeling like crap and all these things? Like, it's not the
Yeah.
worst thing ever in the world, and you get over it over time. But you're right, it becomes less and less worth it over time the more you try this, to the point that like the pie and the ice cream doesn't sound as good as it did. And yes, there might be a mourning process where you think like, I'm never going to be able to eat this. It's like, well, you can, but you're going to pay a price, and you can
Yeah.
decide whether it's worth it to pay the price or not.
Yeah. And then, the other thing that I didn't even mention is that, if you eat that pie and ice cream or whatever it is, you're going to be ravenously hungry, and it's going to be so much more difficult to get off of that diet binge blood sugar roller coaster that I was on for so many years.
Yep, couldn't agree more. That's my issue with fruit, for example. Like, I don't think fruit
Yeah.
is like the worst thing in the world for a lot of people, but if I have it, especially in the middle of my day when I'm like with clients, I'm starving to the point that like I really need to eat something, and that's really inconvenient. It's so much easier to stay fasted.
It's so interesting that you mentioned fruit because I was wearing a CGM it must have been last fall. Um, and because I remember because there was like, I was at the farmer's market and there were these beautiful apples there and I loved fruit. And, for years on Weight Watchers, it was like 0 point fruit, just have fruit all day long. And I ate an apple on an empty stomach and I was wearing a CGM. And my CGM normally would hover, like 85, 90, somewhere around there. The CGM shot up to like 150, 160, something like that. But not only that, from the one apple, I was ravenously hungry from the one apple. Ravenous. Like, and it was like really a spotlight was shown on like, oh my God, this is why I could never make Weight Watchers work. I was just shooting my blood sugar up all day long and it would come crashing down and I would be starving. And never dawned on me that what I was eating was making me hungry rather than filling me up or satiating me in any way. It really was like, holy cow, this is why you couldn't do Weight Watchers all those years. That one apple just was like put a spotlight on 50 years of
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that by the time you got ravenously hungry the second time, I'm guessing that it wasn't one more apple that you really wanted. I'm guessing it's you wanted like candy bars or
Oh
whatever at
yeah.
that
I mean,
point.
had I not been low carb at that point, yes, I would have been off to the races. But
It's not just another apple.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
Wow.
what I
Oh,
tell
that's amazing.
people now when they're eating something that, maybe makes their blood sugar jump up and then it comes crashing down and they're hungry, just go make yourself a gigantic plate of eggs or burgers or eat some meat and get off the roller coaster rather than keep it up.
Yeah, Definitely. And all that to say, like for the listener, like if you're thinking about this and think you were poo-pooing fruit, the point is to really consider what your personality is like. Amy and I tend to be more on the abstainer side of things where it's just easier to avoid the whole mess. I know people that can have one bite of ice cream and put it back, and I can't do that. So it's really just about knowing yourself.
I call those people unicorns because I don't know very
Uh,
many people like I know a few people that are like that, but out in the wild, there's few of us that are able to really just moderate like that.
That's funny. Yeah, I'm teaching a nutrition seminar in my neighborhood, and somebody came to our class last week, and we kind of got on this subject. And he was one of those people that was like, "It's hard for me to understand why somebody can't just level off ice cream. Like, I can have a bite and set it down." And I told everybody in the audience, like, grab whatever heaviest object you have and chuck it at this dude right now because that is not fair.
Yeah, you definitely should, throw ice cream at
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, so you turn the corner, you lose all this weight, you're able to maintain it, your health improves drastically. When did you start getting mixed up with Dr. Tro?
mixed up with him. So yeah, I was about 2 years into my own low carb journey. I was down about 80 or so of the 200 plus that I've lost. And I started to dabble a little bit more in eating. There was some carb creep, as we call it. I was, rather than just being like Christmas or my birthday or whatever, I was dabbling a little bit more and a little more, and I was struggling. And I put back on about 20 pounds, and I could feel that it was headed in the wrong direction. Um, and I needed a doctor. I needed, to go for a physical. I needed somebody that wasn't going to just tell me, here, what's your cholesterol? Here's a statin, and don't eat saturated fat, don't eat steak. So I reached out to Tro to be my doctor. I became his patient for a couple of months. And when we sort of, and I reversed course on the 20 pounds, and I went on to lose quite a bit more. And I remember, at some point, sort of looking at him and saying, I really want to just, I want to help other people do what I've done and help other people not go down the same rabbit hole of terrible advice I had for years. And he was growing his practice at that point, and so I came on as a health coach. He taught me a very interesting way of an interesting approach to low carb, which in retrospect really had married some of the experience that I had with intuitive eating before I went low carb. His approach was sort of very similar to the intuitive eating, which is basically approach this from a position of like what foods make you hungry and what foods fill you up, and prioritize the foods that fill you up. It's eat in ways that don't make you hungrier for more. It's so simple, but it just it's really not all that out there. And so he taught me an interesting way, an approach, and I started working for him. I guess it was 2020. And the rest is history. I've been with him ever since. I am a health coach. I'm the program director of the practice, and I helped put together some programs. And we have an app, a practice-wide app that I'm very involved in both writing for and curating and working on. And yeah, I'm really proud of the work that we're doing.
There's so much that people can do out there to help push this message forward. And I started a podcast. Other people write books. Other people do articles. Like there's so many different ways. The thing that I believe that I respect the most about Dr. Tro is he'll just make something up. Like if there's not an app that is good enough to do what he needs to do, he'll just create it. Like there wasn't a program, he just makes it. Like the
Yeah.
Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners, like that didn't exist. A directory of people that know this stuff. So he just makes it. Like I think it's so cool that he can think critically about those things and just make things out of thin air.
Yeah, well, it is thin air, but it's also he works really hard. We all work really hard. We just want to make losing weight and metabolic health as available as possible to everybody because
Yeah.
he himself lost 150 pounds. I've lost over 200 pounds. I mean, just about every member of our team has lost or been really hugely impacted by low carb and keto. And we all sort of found our way in very, kind of indirect routes, right? We all had to find our own way to low carb, and it shouldn't be that hard. we just want to make it easy and accessible for people to get good information.
Yeah, well, you certainly have accomplished that for sure. Tell us about the team. Tell us about the people that you get to work with.
Yeah, yeah. So as you mentioned, Dr. Tro Kalayjian, there's Dr. Laura Buchanan, who is also at this works with the Society of Metabolic Health practitioners. She and Dr. Tro are lead our medical team. I work with Brian Wiley, who's another health coach, has kept off 100 pounds. We talked about him earlier. Vic Basmajian, also a 100-pound loser. Tia Reed, also a 100-pound loser. I mean, these are all people that have either lived or been so hugely impacted by low carb. We know how to walk the walk and talk the talk, or talk the talk and walk the walk, whatever the right phrase is. Yeah, I'm
Uh,
very lucky to work with a team of people that really care so deeply about what we do.
Yeah, that's amazing. We've been able to host a lot of those same people on our show and to talk to them. And Vic and Tia, I mean, come on, you couldn't get two other amazing examples, just like yourself, of people that are really doing the work, have done the work, and are so excited and lit up to go help people.
Yeah, yeah. That is exactly, like they're just lit. Everybody's lit up to help. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, so I've known about the app, and I've known it's something you guys use. I was able to get like a temporary access to actually get into some of the features, and I'm blown away. I have to say, I'm very, very impressed by everything that you offer. I was able to ask a question in the community. I got several answers. I asked a simple question like, "What is your favorite part about the community?" And the answers were like, "Yeah, to be able to ask questions and to get support not only from the coaches but also laterally the other people that are going through this. The community aspect is so critical. Talk about how you've been able to capture that and make that a big part of your message.
Yeah. So, I mean, I really think that that community and support is critically important. There's so much bad information out there. It's still really difficult to go to a medical professional the world is not set up for people that are low carb, right? It really isn't. You go down any street corner, there's just garbage food everywhere. Our friends and family are like, oh, just have a little bit. It's okay. You'll start over tomorrow. Or a little bit, one cookie isn't going to hurt you. And the world is not set up for us. And it's really amazing to have a community of like-minded people. And now we have over 12,000 people in our app, which was really like Tro when I put it together with like duct tape and paper clips. Like we just over a weekend, it's become this huge thing and an amazing resource, if I do say so myself, of curated medical articles, blog posts about food relationship, fully cited medical articles about CGMs, courses about cardiovascular health, intro to low carb, which is open and free for anybody that downloads the app, which is also free. There is a paid membership, but there's so many resources that are available to everybody for free. We do a Tuesday night group meeting that is open to anybody that joins. It's just, having a place so that you don't feel crazy, right? Like there's so much out there that's so wrong and so other, right? We feel other. We're sitting down and everybody's eating burgers with buns and fries and milkshakes. And it's like, I'm tired of feeling other. I felt other for my whole life, right? I don't want to feel other now because I've reclaimed my health. Um,
Yeah.
so I think that the advantage of having that community and support cannot be really overstated. It's why I reached out to Tro, to be my doctor all those years ago, because I not only did I need a doctor, but I needed community. I needed a like-minded person to say to me, stay the course, you're doing okay. Just keep going.
I love the way you explain that. Yeah, I absolutely love that. The way you said, like, this world is not set up for us eating this certain way. I mean, imagine being a person that had a problem with cocaine and there was just cocaine everywhere. It's available
Right.
in every store. The kids are selling it on the street. You celebrate with parties. Like, it's literally everywhere. You might have a pretty tough time in that world. And that's like
Yeah.
really not that much different than how it is with us and I would argue myself and you and like being a sugar addict because it sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, and then not only do you have to look at it everywhere, but you have like people that you love the most in the world are like, just have a little bit, just have a little bit. You'll be okay. It's fine. Just have a little bit. No, no, I can't.
Yeah. That community support is so important for that, to just not feel like you're the only weird one, like you said, the odd man out. We mentioned also, as we were talking off air, you mentioned that the app has so many features. There are so many different things in there. It's not overwhelming, but there's so much that people probably don't even know about. What are some of your favorite parts or programs that you offer that people haven't really discovered to the extent you wish they had at this point?
Yeah. So, well, the Tuesday night, as I said, the Tuesday night group coaching, I think is open to everybody. We started the Tuesday night before the app was even available because during COVID, people were really struggling in isolation. And so we just started doing a Tuesday night town hall. Just everybody come to Zoom and support each other. But also we now have Intro to Low Carb, which the next one it starts the first week of September. It's a 4-week series. It's open for free to anybody that downloads the app, which is for free. Brian Wiley, Dr. Laura Buchanan. It's an amazing resource, right? Like it's all free, like just to anybody that downloads the app. So there's, a full curriculum of weight loss courses, of weight loss articles, of why low carb, how low carb. And then, my specialty is sort of food relationship and understanding, as I talked a little bit about before, I am low carb. I am fully convinced and on board with low carb, but I still struggle. And there are so many people that I work with that are also struggling, even though they are still low carb. And I believe strongly that that there is a way forward, but it requires a different skill set than just restricting and just lowering your carbs. Sometimes that's not enough. And so there's a full curriculum about food relationship, food addiction. There's fully cited, as I said, medical articles, which you can, pull out the full citations, bring them to your doctor and say, here's the proof. Here's why I'm not going to follow your American Diabetes or your American Cardiology Association diet. This is why. Fully cited medical
Amazing.
articles and proof.
Yeah, that's amazing. Another resource we have coming up, we'll kind of tease this in the beginning of the interview, is you guys have a webinar that's coming up. It's actually this week at the time of the recording, July 27th, 2024. It's called the Weight Loss Mindset Webinar. Tell us about this event. Who is this targeted for, and what is the content going to be?
Yeah, so as you said, it's called the Weight Loss Mindset. It is going to be this Saturday, July 27th. So this is sort of the seminar that I wish I had access to when I was starting, right? It is not just about low carb, but it's about all the things that you need to support your low carb lifestyle, which is really around mindset. It's about sleep and stress, the metabolic impact, how lack of sleep, how stress, and how lack of self-care will drive you to eat. Sometimes you don't even know, right? You're just told to keep your carbs low and just kind of watch your intake, eat less, move more, and nobody even knows the impact that all of these things have. Tro and myself will be talking about really more about that food relationship, just about the title of my presentation is called I Know What to Do, Why Can't I Stick to It? As I talked about before, I still struggle, right? And I've had to come up with I've had to use every resource that I learned from all those years, either doing intuitive eating or Weight Watchers or just I don't calorie count now, but I've pulled in all the tools and I pick and choose what is now helpful to me moving forward. So it's really coming up with strategies for, I am low carb, but I'm still struggling. What do I do? And Tro's going to be talking about what we call moment zero, which is why and how do we get back on track when we are struggling? And really just what the downstream impact is of keeping the struggles going, what keeps us in the struggle, and what basically ends it pretty quickly, and how to get back on track quickly. This is the program that I wish that I had all those years ago. Then you have Dr. Lenskis, Brian Lenskis, who's also Tro's podcast host. He's going to be talking about the mindset shifts that have to happen for weight loss. Coach Bronson Dant will also be talking about mindset and nutrition. Just an amazing lineup of people. Dr. Laura Buchanan will be talking about sleep and the metabolic impact on that. So it's really exciting. The course is going to be available. It's live this Saturday, July 27th, and there'll be Q&As after each session, and then the recordings will be available to you forever after Saturday. So I hope a lot of people come. We're really excited about it. We're working hard to kind of make the curriculum awesome. I'm really proud of the work that we're doing, and I'm really excited to bring it out there.
That's fantastic. Looking through the speaker list, I'm so excited for the event. I think it's going to be fabulous. I'm going to put you on the spot and just say, who are you most looking forward to hearing from? Don't get this wrong.
Well, I hear Tro every day, so I would have normally said Tro, but because I hear his voice in my head all day long, I've heard that one of our speakers is Thomas Clifford. He's a martial arts expert, and he was on Tro's podcast many years ago. He's a great speaker. He's incredibly motivational. I haven't heard him speak since listening to him on the podcast. He was maybe on in 2019, 2020, somewhere around there. He's a great speaker. He's a motivational speaker. And then, Dr. Lenskis was on our Tuesday night group call a couple of months back, but I couldn't make it that night. And so I'm excited to hear what he has to say again as well. And the only reason I didn't say Dr. Buchanan is because I heard her speech already. And I heard Tori Jones, who's a mental health counselor, I heard her talk already. So, but I mean, everybody I think is going to be awesome. So.
Yeah, good answer. Good answer. I told you not to get it wrong, and then the first person you said you weren't as excited was your own boss. So
only because I hear him all day long. I have the good honor of hearing him speak all day long.
Yeah, that is a very fair point. He's a great speaker. He just has really dynamic content, and just like, kind of his Twitter personality, he's not afraid to just tell it like it is, which I really appreciate. I loved his talk that he gave at Low Carb Denver 2023. It was absolutely wonderful, and yeah, he's a great speaker. I'm looking forward to all of those as well. I love the title of your talk, and it also is in the form of a question, which is a question I'm going to ask you now. I know what to do. Why can't I stick to it? This is pretty common. Fair question for you. I know what to do. Why can't I stick with it?
I'll give you the quick and the dirty, because I'm going to talk for an hour on this topic in a couple of days. But really, the truth of the matter is a lot of it boils down to over-reliance on willpower and lack of planning. Thinking that willpower is going to magically show up at our most vulnerable moments. It's not. You can create willpower, you can create motivation, but willpower is really a finite resource. And so any energy you have available should be put towards creating the systems around building up willpower, because it's not going to just show up. It's just not. And then the other thing that I would say is really that kind of keeps us from sticking with it is really this notion of all or nothing thinking, like trying to be perfect all the time. When you wake up on, I'm going to start on Monday, you're just trying to get to the most perfect version of whatever diet you're trying to do, right? But I could break any diet. I have broken every diet. I've broken low carb. So really, what do you have besides perfection? Because the problem with perfection is it's unsustainable. And the flip side of all is nothing, which is basically diet or binge, right? Rinse and repeat over and over again. And so what can you do to get yourself out of that perfectionistic, all or nothing, black or white, on or off, good or bad? I'm either good today, I'm bad today. That cycle that just keeps you stuck, right? Oftentimes it's two things. It's getting rid of judgment and shame, that's self-judgment, and it's also eating more and not eating less, eating more of the foods that satiate you, that fill you up, calming your nervous system down. And when your hunger and cravings are down, when your willpower is back up, just keep going back to low carb. But it's
Yeah.
sort of
Is that what
being
you tell?
comfortable with that good, better, and best option for yourself. Like I sorry to interrupt you, but like we don't practice with diet, right? Like we expect to just be like a virtuoso piano player. Just, Beethoven didn't sit down and just create a masterpiece on his first try, right? He practiced. And we expect ourselves to wake up Monday morning starting our diet and just create masterpieces. Weight loss is a process. It's not an end game. Health is a process. It's not an end game.
I love that. And that pretty much answered the question I was going to ask you related to shame and guilt. These are very powerful emotions that I think a lot of people really struggle with. And you saying like, look, give yourself the grace if you fall off the wagon, just come back. You know where the home base is. You can always just come back. Do you find that kind of advice works really well for people?
People resonate with the advice, but it's hard to do in the moment because that
Yeah.
that shame spiral just it's like an albatross around our neck that just pulls us under the water, right? It's so hard to break yourself from it. Even me, like even knowing all that I know, I eat something that I'm not particularly proud of and I'm stuck in that spiral. It is so hard to break out of. And so while it helps it resonates for people, but it's really hard in the moment to break free of it. I think it's helpful to if we tell this to people ahead of time so they know what to expect. Like that the messaging is going to be when you eat off plan, you're going to say to yourself that some part of you is going to say to you, just keep going. Just keep going. You'll start over on Monday, right? Like, no, I could do a whole lot of damage between a Friday night and a Monday morning. So
Yep.
I and then don't over restrict after eating something off plan. Eat more. Go make yourself the most giant plate of bacon and eggs or burgers or steak or something. Fill yourself up on whole real foods. And then do an assessment of like what led you off track. Not from a place of judgment, not because, if you say to yourself, oh my God, you messed up like all the other times, you disgusting fat, whatever, there's no coming back from that other than to drive you 60 miles an hour towards food, right? If you say to yourself, wow, you really struggled there, like what happened, you can maybe come to an answer to help yourself the next time.
That is wonderful advice. Amy, this has been a wonderful conversation. I'm really looking forward to this webinar coming up this week. Like I said, very time sensitive. I'm glad we were able to do this and talk
Thank
about
you
this and
so
get this
much,
out there.
Casey.
Oh no, it's been amazing. And regardless of whether people can attend or not, I think it's a valuable resource. And I think even just in our discussion today, there's so much that people can dig into. And yes, it might not be easy, but it can be simple. And just remembering some of those tools and understanding yourself and your own behaviors and trying to do better next time is just such great advice for people out there who are really struggling with this. Because, like you said earlier, I think this was so well said. This world is not set up for you if you're trying to live this way. But if this is helping you and you're feeling better and you know you need to do this the way that you realized you needed to, we got to find some strategies to make this work because otherwise there's going to be a lot of suffering and it's going to be really, really tough. So I'm just so grateful for you. I'm grateful that you decided to not only use this with yourself and your family, but also to become a health coach and share this with the world. You do such a great job. I just have so much love and respect for Tro and everybody on the team. We just love you guys doing amazing work. Where would
Thank
you
you
like people
so
to go to
much.
find you? Of course. Where would you like people to go to find you and connect with you and your work?
Yeah, so there's two places. One is you can go to drtro.com, DOCTOR, Tro.com. You can find links to the app, to the weight loss mindset through there. And then if you want to just go to the app store, it's Toward Health, TOWARD Health. But you can get everything through the Dr. Tro website. And then if you want to work with me as a health coach, you can do that through there. You can start to work with Tro as your doctor or Dr. Laura as your doctor. You can work with Tia or Vic or Brian or any of us, and then you can find links to the app right through the website.
Excellent. We'll be sure to link all that up. Anybody would be served to work with any of you guys on the team. You guys, are all, like I said, are just so special and are doing such amazing work. So again, thank you, Amy, so very much for everything you've gone through in your life, and the willingness to be able to share it and help other people out there is just amazing. So thank you so very much for all of your work, and thank you for taking time to be on our show today. Really appreciate
Yeah.
you.
Thank you, Casey.
Absolutely. And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio.